Hey guys, welcome back to the Single Malt Review, where we continue our foray through the Irish taste-orama here, brought to us by Drinks by the Dram, and it is time for Egan number 2, the re-Eganing.
We looked previously at Egan's Fortitude, a 100% cherry matured, no age statement single malt. Today's offering is also from Egan's, but could not be more different.
Oh. Well, I mean, it could be lemonade, but within the spectrum, it is kind of an opposite of this one.
We're jumping from single malt to single grain. This is Egan's vintage grain. This one does have an age statement. It is 8 years old and matured entirely in ex-bourbon wood.
So from sherry to bourbon, and
from malt to grain.
Malt to grain, yeah.
And from no particular age, probably quite young, through to what is by grain standards quite old.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, grain's a funny one. You'll find
Yeah.
ludicrously aged grain because no one wants it. It's just about the only ludicrously aged whiskey you can afford anymore, because no one wants it. But hey, never mind, certainly.
But still 46%, which is a nice number to see.
So we'll assume this one comes from the same place as the last one, which my hazarded guess was either Tullamore or Middleton, which are both pretty lowball. Those are low-hanging distilleries in terms of where does it come from. Someone may have more insight as to that. Although when you've got these contract distillers, these non-distiller producers, bottlers, there's nothing to stopping different releases coming from completely different distilleries. It has happened before, so we'll take everything with a grain of salt on that one. So that's distinctly lighter, as you would expect.
I forget, did their literature say anything about colouring or chill filtration?
No, they did not. However,
that's right.
Given that we didn't see any cloud on the addition of water last time, I'd say probably chill filtered. Coloured though, this is pretty restrained for 8 years old.
Yeah.
So colouring, maybe not. If it is, then not a great deal either way.
8 years in bourbon, you can get that's
for sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty, enough bits and bobs here. What does it smell like?
Oh wow,
that's grain, alright.
Man, lashings of vanilla and honey already. That is some serious bourbon cask influence. Well, it's 100% bourbon cask, so of course it does. But maple syrup, pancakes or waffles. It's that's sweet. I like it a lot.
This is grain for sure, and I'll trot out the one tasting note that I have for grain, or the only one that I need that I use to identify it, and that's Russian fudge. There it is. It's it's that sweet dairy, those sort of lactose, those milk bottles we'd call them, taste, in addition to just the heapies of sweetness, just sweetness oodles of it.
Oh, it smells lovely. I thought that the Fortitude single malt smelled sweet, but this is a different level.
No, grain will just do that to you every time. Does it follow through? More or less.
That's a little thin, less of an impact, slightly perfumey, bit of a prickle, some heat.
It's spirity, for sure. Are we still 46%?
It is.
Yeah, okay. So both 46%. This one, much more of an impact on the tonsils there from the spirit, which is to be expected. I mean, this one's come out of a factory, not a pot still. Right. Grain to grain, I don't think the concentration on this one's too bad. I think this is pretty giving in terms of intensity of flavour.
Yeah.
There's never going to be much of a breadth or depth of flavour with grain, unless they are so old that the barrel's completely taken over and you just have a sort of a weird, literally single barrel offering where you are tasting the barrel, not the spirit. This is still pretty spirit driven, so
it's a good. While it's not a heavy body or layers of flavour and oily depth, it's still got a good kind of a citrus sherbet fizz to it. It's got a nice intense kick of flavour, but fades pretty fast.
Yeah. So I don't dislike it. Again, I have the same, problem, not problem with it, in that this is atypical, being single grain whiskey. As a single grain whiskey, it is pretty typical. There is nothing particularly Irishy about this one. This, if maybe even more than the last one, which I thought was kind of a ringer for sherry matured Ben Riach. This is a ringer for bourbon matured. Well, North British could come out of anywhere. It's all kind of a very, very similar thing.
Well, I've added some water. That's changed the nose remarkably. I've got some more vulcanized rubber and a bit more savoury character happening. Oh, that's really gone places. It's quite light, and those sweet notes are still there. but there's a lot more happening besides.
More refreshing.
For
sure.
There's now, there's some lemon meringue, bit of buttery pastry. That has brought out some extra flavours. It still doesn't stick around. It's not like a mouth-filling, long finish or anything. But it has got, there's some complexity to that palate.
Yeah. I think I'd probably say this is a much more indicative of a youthful one than the single malt, despite that one having no age statement and this one having one. There's much more youthful character here. But, it's nice. There's a vivacity to it. This one would do perfectly well with an ice cube or two on a hot day as we barrel into the summer over here. But, again, not a lot of an Irish, not a hugely Irish personality to it, I guess, which is, and again, that's only a problem if that's what you're in there for. And I mean, if you've got Irish whiskey, presumably you are, just because it's such a minority. So yeah, I don't know, odd wrinkle to have against it, but generally though, and this was always going to be the case, I just don't like this one as much as much as the single malt, because the single malt was really good, and there's a reason for that. It's because malt whiskey's better. That's why there's so little of it in blends, because it's bloody expensive to make, and so it should be better.
Yeah.
And so too it is. This one, I'd probably give this one a 78.
Okay.
It's fine. It's all good, but it's more of a chuck it in an ice cube. Don't think too hard about a whiskey for me.
It is good. It's tasty. It obviously has those limitations of grain whiskey, but it is great, especially as a contrast to the single malt, being different type of cask, different type of grain, and very different age in the barrel. It's an 82 from me. Yeah. It's tasty, not earth-shattering or world-changing, but it's not trying to be. Obviously, it's a single grain whiskey. It is what it is, and what it is tasty and fun.
I think that's fair enough. Perfectly good. Does what it says on the label, by and large. There you go. Well, cheers, Egan. I have to stop myself saying Egon from the Ghostbusters every single time, and I've been very restrained not making any Ghostbusters bits, but I can feel them rising up inside me. So we'll move along before that happens.
Too late.
And then we'll see. It's coming. No, Sergeant, we've got to go. They're coming.